his ability to effectively investigate and prosecute international crimes. Overall, I will also be speaking about, since the topic sort of encompasses the future of the ICC, I will perhaps, in my individual capacity, and also being the advisor to the Ministry of Law and Justice and being a member of Parliament, shed some light on, of course, we as a country want to be engaged in the process of seeing how we could perhaps, become a state party to the Rome Statute in the future. But of course, we want to see, because we have many countries that are now the members, of course, and we've seen the state withdrawals that have happened over the years. Now, the significant challenges that I've obviously mentioned with these complex factors of, the perception of potential threat to the national security, the perception of selective enforcement of the ICC's mandate, and the perception of and the inconsistencies with the national laws and the state withdrawals. Having said all of this, I still think that we have these opportunities for a truly global system of justice, including enhanced regional cooperation and meaningful dialogue. Because obviously, we do have to see it from a regional perspective as well, and not just in a global perspective, because both these perspectives are actually important to us. International forums, such as EGA, IPU is another one, and there are various other international forums where we can obviously discuss and see how best, with the help of these international forums, through dialogue, we can sort of negotiate or reach consensus and common ground on things that we can agree on. And with regards to these international forums, they can certainly assist us in finding a common plan of action for making the role of ICC more robust and acceptable. States, obviously, that have ratified the Rome Statute and implemented its provisions in the domestic law also need to share their insights with potential members, with current members, because it's a very daunting task, because once you become a state party to the Rome Statute, you then obviously have to adopt it to your national law. And where there are complex legal systems, where there are hybrid legal systems, and not just, of course, you've got the civil law jurisdictions, you've got the common law jurisdictions, but then you've got a hybrid of jurisdictions as well, where in countries such as Pakistan, we've got the Sharia law as well. So we do have to see it from that perspective as well. So the countries that have already ratified the Rome Statutes, they could perhaps, shed some light or insight, or share some insight into how we can then adapt this or how easily, by way of an example, perhaps from the panelists or from the audience, the participants, of how easy, of how difficult was it for the member states that have signed to the Rome Statute to then implement and transcend that into national legislation, or to reflect that into national legislation. Holistic regional dialogue is certainly critical in building consensus on the international criminal law regime. But there is one point of concern, and of course this was obviously also raised during various discussions that took place yesterday and today as well. And one of the point of concern is, of course, global powers like the US, China, Russia are actually not state parties to the Rome Statute. So obviously it creates an impression that the ICC is used as a political tool to influence policies of the least developed world. Now, having said that, another point of concern, obviously, is the Rome Statute actually permits the ICC to initiate prosecution against individuals of state upon referral from Human Security Council, whereas 3 out of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council have not yet ratified the Rome Statute. So this is, again, another point of concern, where 3 of the 5 major members of the Security Council, and when the mandate has been given to the Security Council that they can actually refer a case to initiate prosecutions against. individuals of the state. So that's again another point of concern. And on this, I have a suggestion as well in a way forward as a CBM, as a confidence building measure amongst those prospective member states or state parties that perhaps we could. And I'm sure this would be very difficult in any way, but I'm sure amending the Rome Statute in consultation with the members and the state parties that have already actually signed the Rome Statute. So we can certainly work on that. So and finally, it's the major step towards universal adoption of the Rome Statute would be to leverage diplomatic channels to convince major global powers to accede to the jurisdiction of the ICC. And of course, ICC itself needs to set uniform and discernible parameters of the principles of complementarity. It should not only act where there is blatant violation of Statute of Rome. One example would be, as a CBN, to prospective member states or state parties that actually we might be thinking or pondering over joining or ratifying or signing the Rome Statute as well, could be as a CBN to perhaps amend and take this power away from the Security Council. So this could also be, this is again a discussion. I know it's something that's too big, of course, to start with, but of course, when you talk about selective applicability of the Rome Statute, especially in the regional context. So you do have to see it from that perspective as well, where state parties are actually withdrawn from being signatory of ratifications to the Rome Statute. So, but Pakistan actually has always supported the establishment of impartial and effective international mechanisms that are fair, independent, and complementary to national systems, free from political influence. Pakistan remains committed to the principles of justice and accountability and advocates for a consistent and universal application of the international humanitarian law, free from double standards or selective implementation. Taking everything into account, no matter how the diverse nature of challenges it faces, ICC, however, stands as a crucial institution that could prove instrumental to fostering global justice. By way of promoting cooperation and dialogue, the international community can certainly work towards strengthening the ICC as an effective adjudicatory institution that promotes global justice.